opening up very soon at Disney's California Adventure is the first Marvel land to ever open at a Disney theme park, that being Avengers Campus, which will open on June 4th. Though there will be 2 new major attractions coming to this land, there's only going to be one that will be there on opening day, and that's Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure. This attraction will be an interactive screen ride where guests can act like Spider-Man and shoot their own webs at enemies. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, what in the world is up with this guy's title? How the heck could bringing Spider-Man, probably the most popular superhero in the whole United States, to the Disney parks be a bad move? That just makes no sense. And here's the thing, folks, before I even get into it, let me just say, this is not clickbait. I 100% believe this. I tweeted about this 3 years ago, okay? I am not kidding, and I certainly did not sensationalize this for views, okay? This is honestly a true opinion, and I'm going to get into details right away. So first things first, let's establish some things. Disney owns Marvel, therefore they own the theme park rights for all the Marvel characters west of the Mississippi. Universal owns them east of the Mississippi, but that's a topic that I've already covered in another video. The point is that Disney owns the theme park rights to Spider-Man, right? So they can use him, no problem. They don't have to pay a licensing fee, nothing, right? Yes, they can. However, they cannot use the Tom Holland version of the character without paying a licensing fee. Why? Because that character is owned by Sony. Of course, Sony acquired the movie rights to Spider-Man back in the 90s when Marvel was having a fire sale right before they were about to go bankrupt. Fire sale. So, if Disney wants to use the movie version of Spider-Man, guess who we have to pay? Sony. So what does that tell us, folks? That means that the one character they could not use and they need to pay a licensing fee for, they went out and got. You could have used any other character for free. Instead, you're paying a licensing fee for Spider-Man, a character who's maybe marginally more popular than somebody like Iron Man and Captain America, who you've been building up through the MCU for years? I mean, you literally made this land purposely in front of Infinity War in the timeline so that you could use characters like Captain America and Iron Man. Why the heck would you not use them for your marquee attraction instead of a character you do not own? Even outside of Captain America and Iron Man, even a Thor ride, a Black Panther ride, these would have been totally fine, would have been just as popular as your Spider-Man ride is bound to be. So I don't understand why the heck you had to go out and pay the licensing fee to Sony for the rights to this. It seems like just a waste of money. But here's the thing, folks. That's not even the worst part about this.
What? No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
Let's not forget that in 2019, Sony almost walked away from the table with Spider-Man. They said no, he's not going to show up in any more MCU movies. God forbid they actually did walk away and didn't renegotiate. You would have just been having a Spider-Man ride in your parks promoting a competitor's brand. That would have been horrible. On top of this, speaking of renegotiations, when renegotiations come up again, which it will be soon, because in their newest deal, Marvel would help produce one more Spider-Man movie, and Spider-Man would show up in one more MCU team-up movie. That's it. That's all the deal had. So you need to come back to the table with them probably within the next 3 years. And when it comes time to make that deal again, guess what? Sony's gonna have more leverage over you because they know that you're gonna want the Spider-Man IP in the MCU as much as possible, because now you got a permanent attraction sitting in one of your marquee parks with the Spider-Man name on it that obviously you do not want to have to re-theme or tear down. So congrats, Disney. You shot yourself in the foot, and now either one, you're going to be promoting a brand that is not yours, or you're going to be sat there dealing with a deal with Sony that was not one you would have gotten had you had not even had this ride in the first place.
Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think with fly, think.
Now, coming back to the licensing rights part of this situation, I do not believe that the theme park rights for Tom Holland's Spider-Man were included with this movie deal. So I don't believe that in 3 years' time they could potentially, have to get rid of Spider-Man regardless of how they feel about promoting a competitor's brand. I mean, I don't think Disney's that stupid. more than likely a separate deal was made that I could not find online. It probably is not available since it is a relatively new deal, but chances are they went ahead and signed a separate deal with Sony for the theme park rights to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Typically, these deals last somewhere between 10 to 20 years. So, not a bad time frame if you're talking about it. Let's even just assume that it's 20 years. But here's the thing. You gotta imagine that 20 years from now, do we really think that Sony is still gonna be working with Disney on Spider-Man? The fact that they almost broke up after the very first initial length of the deal? I just don't see in 20 years them still working together. So chances are, if Disney wanted to keep this ride for more than 20 years, which let's be honest, they probably do. I mean, it's Disney. They'll keep rides for like 60 years if they can. They're not going to be happy if they have to get rid of this ride in 20 years. That's not going to be an ideal situation, right? They're not Universal, who's plenty okay cycling rides every 20 years. That is not Disney's mantra. That's not the way they play the game. So losing the rights to the Tom Holland version of this character in 20 years could actually be pretty detrimental to them and could force them to spend more money than they would have liked to within that time frame on this attraction. Whereas, of course, if they had gone with Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Black Panther, they wouldn't have had to have changed anything after 20 years and could have kept the ride running for substantially longer than that. And here's another cherry on top. Not the biggest deal in the world, but another reason why picking Spider-Man for your marquee attraction makes no sense whatsoever. And that's that Universal, who I already mentioned earlier, owns the rights to many Marvel characters east of the Mississippi. They have a Spider-Man ride in Orlando. Why in the world would you want to build a ride based around the same character that your competitor has a ride based around? All that's going to do is bring about comparisons. And since you are the bigger park, why in the world would you want people talking about your lesser competitor as far as attendance goes? It makes no sense, right? If this was the opposite way around, if Universal built a Spider-Man ride after Disney did and they both existed at the same time, it would make a lot more sense because you're kind of trying to undercut the higher level competitor. But this is the opposite. Disney is higher ahead of Universal as far as attendance goes right now. Why in the world would they want anybody talking about Spider-Man and the fact that Universal has a ride based around it as well? That doesn't make any sense to me. And here's the other thing, you're going to bring about unwanted comparisons. This is going to be a screen ride, like I mentioned earlier. And yes, it's going to be a different type of screen ride from Spider-Man at Universal, but let's not forget that that ride is really well received and has been critically acclaimed in and outside of the industry. I mean, people love that ride. There's a reason why it's been around for as long as it has. And the last thing you want is through that comparison for people to come off of your ride and be like, well, Universal's was better. That is the worst thing you could have people saying, is that Universal's was better. So you are really putting yourself into a Venus flytrap right now. You better hope it doesn't come down and bite you, and you better hope that your ride is better, or else you're having a bit of a nightmare. And let's be honest here, folks. Disney's screen rides, no matter what you want to say about Universal screen rides and the fact they overuse them, let's be honest, Disney screen rides are not anywhere near as good as Universal's, on average, okay? Universal obviously has more experience with them, so it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that theirs are typically better. So I'm a bit, I'm honestly leaning towards, I might be a bit pessimistic here, but I'm a bit leaning towards Disney's ride not being as good as Universal's, and I think that's going to bring about some unwanted comparisons. Thankfully, they are on opposite sides of the country, so it's not going to be as big of a deal as the previous points I've mentioned, but I still think it's another reason to add to the many as to why this doesn't make any sense. Why go Spider-Man? You have so many other IPs you could have used under the Marvel brand that would have been free, aren't owned by your competitors, and don't bring about unwanted comparisons. It makes no sense. It is just a brain dead move. And listen, dude, Disney does some perplexing things sometimes, some things I don't understand, but I give them the benefit of the doubt in many cases. This is not one of them. This is stupid. I don't understand it. Just because he's the most popular by a marginable amount in the United States, why the heck do you think that makes him the perfect candidate? He's not the perfect candidate. Anyways, folks, let me know what you think in the comments, if you agree with me or not, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.